right, what up? This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch horror movies and tell you why they suck. I'm Ashley Atkins, and I'm joined by my good friend and frequent guest, Ian MacGregor.
Hello. Once again, this movie is my fault.
Well, we haven't even talked about the movie.
You're right.
You're right. Skinamarink was also your fault. Ian has a habit of picking atrociously bad movies.
I thought that was the premise of this podcast. I'm told you've changed direction since, but I think I'm doing my part.
We're trying to be a little more interesting to our listeners with our movie choices.
I picked this movie out of the aisle. So I was going off first impressions only, and this movie has the best first impression for like shitty horror that I've ever seen in my life.
That is fair. This cover is great. It's like a man in the sand with some ants crawling on him.
Have we said the title yet?
No, the movie is The Bone Snatcher.
The Bone Snatcher.
Promising title. Honestly. Promising.
And
sort of.
It's a fancy special edition. It's got the steelbook. Honestly, I used to think naively that they only made steelbooks of good movies. So when I saw it had one, I was like, wow, what a steal, $6. No, they do not.
You know what my favorite thing, and this is actually, I'm going to give away one of my goods right now.
Really?
Yes, because the good thing about this experience was that you paid $6 for it when you can get it for free on YouTube.
Yup.
Which is how I watched the rest of it. I went to Ian's to watch it, and I was literally falling asleep. But before we get into too much, you're probably wondering, no Carter again? What is this? Well, you see, Carter was in Portugal. You already know that. But what you don't know is that I was tasked with trying to record some extra episodes while he was gone, so that way we could build up a log. That didn't happen because I was exposed to COVID and had to quarantine / wear a mask. So we had to push out this guest recording. We had already watched the movie. Plus, Carter is going to be recording with a guest, and you'll hear that next week. So that way we do get our backlog. But Carter is actually here. He is in the next room eating dinner, watching us.
Yep.
He will be joining later, but if you hear
chewing
eating
sounds
in the background, far, far away, that's him enjoying his steak.
Steak with bordelaise sauce.
I'm going to cut that out. But anyways.
And my gluten-free beer.
And his gluten-free beer. But yeah, so he'll probably come to our table in a little bit and maybe even interject on a movie he's never seen. But with that, we'll get started. For those of you who are new here, he's wandering over. No, okay. For those of you who are new here, don't know how this works. I hate this.
Carter's chewing in my ear.
It's very uncomfortable. What are you doing?
I feel like a Victorian child in a factory as the supervisor wanders over chewing on tobacco or something.
I'm not even here, don't mind me.
That's exactly what it feels like. I feel like a monkey being forced to perform. Stop!
Go eat your meat. Go drink your beer.
Sound assured.
All right. So how this works is that we've watched a movie. We're going to give you the plot. We're going to give some fun facts, which actually there are none. But
I have a fun fact.
Anyways, and then we will get into the good, the bad, and the spooky. Sorry, we'll get into the good, the bad, and the spooky, and then we will give our overall impressions, final ratings, maybe a quote if we can find one. You have a quote? Okay, thank God. And that's it. So yeah, this is going to be a podcast first, but Ian is going to give the plot.
Yes. So as best I remember, most of the movie's set in South Africa. There's a team of geologists looking for diamonds. They find a funky rock formation and they decide to crack it open. And after that happens, one of them shoves his head in and something gets him and pulls him under. And then we cut to Dr. Zach Straker, That's our man. As he is running a test on some like extreme environment habitat he's designing. Think of like the things that they use to simulate living on Mars, where they like put you in an isolated thing and pretend that if it has a hole break in it, you die. He's testing one of those with his fellow scientists. He, with his extreme weather experience, gets sent to investigate into the desert, and they arrive. There's a cryptic shop owner who gives him some Tylenol. He goes to a mining outpost run by some British people, and they venture into the desert with their huge Jeep thing, and they find the like bodies of those three geologists from the intro sans all their flesh. They're just bones, except for one. One bone set is missing. I'm told actually that's a skeleton, and so that skeleton has walked off into the desert. They follow the footprints, and eventually the footprints turn into four prints, like as if it was on four legs, and then they sort of lose track of it. Eventually, in the night, they're attacked by a Bigfoot-shaped creature composed of ants, and that creature gets fended off. They use gasoline to like make a line around their camp, and they continue trekking through the desert. Eventually, the creature does get the better of them. It attacks one of the guys who is sleeping in a sleeping bag. I think his name was Kurt. It eats all his skin off. He dies. This other dude, Titus, tries to like help him. It eats his arm off, and the Bigfoot-esque creature dissolves into a bunch of ants. Ashley's glaring at me, so I'm going to speed this up. The ants terrorize them throughout the night, or maybe it's 2 nights. There's a sandstorm. They go to a mine. The ants are like a hive mind serving a bug queen who can't move herself. So she uses the ants to either move her or bring her food or both. Somehow the bones are involved. Don't ask me.
Okay, I remember this part. So the bones give the ants structure because their home was destroyed, so they need a way to get around. So they choose to use the bones to create a body of sorts.
I have gripes about this later. Anyways, they determine that the ants took the queen to a mine. They go in the mine. The bug monster attacks them poorly. And then they stab the queen, and everyone goes home. And then Zach decides he wants to stay in the desert to investigate the bugs and help them live in the desert better. The end.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be glaring. I was thinking, though, you were giving a lot of detail that was unnecessary, but I didn't mean to glare. All right, so here are the facts. This is a British-Canadian horror film directed by Jason Wolfson? Whatever. Don't know what else he's done. It stars Scott Barstow, Rachel Shelley, and Adrian Pearce. But I looked at their credits and I didn't recognize anything. So
shame. You'd think the Bone Snatcher would be a great entry in any career.
I don't know. With a movie title of "It Will Scare You Out of Your Skull," you would think so.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so according to IMDb, there are no facts about this movie, but there are a couple goofs. So we're gonna talk about the goofs. At one point, Miki leans on a desk before the office fight, and then she mysteriously moved. I did remember that. I think we did laugh about that, yeah. And then after the fight in the desert, Carl's hand appears on Zach's shoulder between scenes. Yep, those are 2 goofs. You said you had a fact.
Well, my fact was going to be that it's what is it? I wrote it down. A United Kingdom plus Canada plus South Africa movie. And I always like it when the countries work together and you see like a movie come out of, somewhere that doesn't produce a lot, like when New Zealand had that horror sheep film.
I don't think I
think it's called Black Sheep. It's about zombie sheep.
Oh. Add it to the list.
Anyways, I think it's nice. The only other thing, at one point they're handcuffed, and then I don't think this is a goof. I just think they didn't write this into the plot. They're suddenly out of the handcuffs. I don't know how it happened. Like, it cuts to a few hours later.
Yeah,
and
he's in the handcuffs. He's like,
he's
watch
handcuffs
this.
to, like, a car.
He's like, watch this. He shoves his foot through the window to, like, kick the guy, but then they're just out of the handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me that you were able to use enough brute force to, like, rip them off, but you chose to kick the guy in the head first.
Maybe they fished the keys out of his pocket.
They still would have had to take one person would have still had to take them off first.
To reach?
Yeah.
Maybe.
How would they have gotten them?
Long arms. Just reach through the window. They kicked the window in.
Yeah, but their handcuffs are up here.
Oh, yeah.
They're handcuffed to the ceiling. Like,
Yeah.
It wasn't like... It's not like they were just handcuffed together and they could reach in. They were actually handcuffed to the car.
I think maybe they just wrote themselves into a corner.
Yeah, I
And
think so.
needed to keep things moving.
I think it's like... Sometimes movies do that, though, where they like, kind of let you just overlook them getting out of handcuffs. Honestly, I didn't really mind it, because I figured they would have figured it out. That was one of the few things I could overlook. All right, let's start with the good. I'm going to let Ian go first because he's a lot more than I do.
I don't actually have that much.
I literally have
But it's more
one.
than Ashley's one. So, I'm also going to be very generous. In the opening, when Zach is testing with the fellow scientists, I loved their outfits. Zach's in a Hawaiian shirt and khakis. He's working with a woman who's in, like, a nice, like, winter coat. I think the term might be petticoat, but, like, the, like, thick fabric kind with the large buttons.
You mean a peacoat?
Peacoat, yeah. And then their supervisor comes up to tell Zach he's going on this mission, and he's in a leather jacket with a gingham scarf. And just wow, what a way to start the movie with these characters who will never appear or be mentioned again.
Honestly, okay, I'll give you that one. I'm gonna add to my good actually. At the very end, there's this one female worker on this mine trip. She's like wearing their uniform, and then she switches at the very end to this very sexy red dress. But it was like very nice. But then also
Zach's outfit.
He's got the classic 2003.
It's so awful.
T-shirt with the long sleeve shirt underneath, but they're one shirt. They're not like a two shirt thing.
Yeah, and the T-shirt says like 7 on it, spelt out, and then has the number 7 on like each sleeve. And he has that necklace where it's like it looks like those candy necklaces, but it's made of wood.
Oh no, you're right. The wooden
one.
Oh yes. And he had cargo shorts on.
And Mickey calls him Surfer Boy. And I'm like, okay, did we know this? He's definitely in like kind of a Surfer Boy outfit. And I remembered.
Think he was from California or something.
Yes, and he's sand surfing earlier in the movie in
Oh,
one
okay.
scene. I thought that was
don't
kind of
remember
cool,
that.
actually. Because I forgot sand surfing exists.
I'm laughing because I know Carter has owned this outfit before.
I won't lie, minus the necklace, I've probably owned it too.
Yeah, this is quintessential
Yeah.
2003 fashion for men. It was rough out there. Stay strong.
It was. Things are better now. All right.
little.
Moving on to my next good. I actually liked the desert shots. They were very...
Okay.
Rather
Yeah.
than having like a silly filter, it was like very like natural, like palish light. The sand was pale. The sky was pale with like very few clouds. It was very like expansive, which made it feel kind of isolating in a few shots, especially when you get the really wide ones with the characters in the distance.
Sure. Yeah. The setting was nice. But there was a lot of it.
There was a lot of it. Don't let these goods fool you.
Okay, all right.
We almost fell asleep.
Literally. Anyways, keep going.
At one point, there's a sandstorm, and all you can hear is the wind, and you see the characters like shouting at each other and like gesturing and like trying to talk, but there's no audio. Not that the audio is drowned out. There's like no audio for them. I kind of liked that.
One thing I did like about that scene, it's not in my good, but I thought they were very rational in their movements during that scene. Like they all kind of crouch and huddle together in like a circle. They make like a...
Yeah.
They kind of just cuddle up. And I think that, I was like, yep, that's exactly what I would have... They're like, find cover. And it's like, you're in a desert. Like,
Okay, I'm going to add another good because that reminded me. One thing I liked, these characters are like ready to survive in a desert.
Well,
like
yeah.
all of them. No, but like it ruined the tension kind of because there's no danger because they're
Well,
ready to survive in the desert.
That's true too.
But it was kind of neat for them to be like, yeah, we've got supplies. Yeah, we know what to do in a sandstorm. Yeah, we've got a desert
Sure.
vehicle.
But also, it's a horror movie that
I know.
didn't have any tension. Like,
None.
there wasn't even any drama either. Like, yeah, there's sandstorms coming, but they make the logical choice and survive and are
Yup.
fine. Like, not even like injured after it. They just kind of get up and keep moving. Like, they were
Yup.
so unfazed by it.
All right, last thing. You're almost free. At one point, they draw a circle in the sand with gasoline around a little tree, and they're hiding from the snatcher around said tree, and they're all holding hands, the three survivors. I kind of liked that.
Okay.
That's it.
My only good thing, I thought the monster was pretty cool.
Oh, I loved the monster.
I want to save details for the spooky, but like,
yeah.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting that it was ants coming together as one, because we didn't find that out right away, so that was pretty cool. But that's it. That's all I got. I only really put it in the good because I needed to put something.
Nah, I love the monster.
But no, the monster is cool. We'll
But
get into
we'll save
more
it for
about
the
it.
spooky.
All right, now let's go on to the bad. Where to start?
I can start.
You want to go ahead?
Yeah, so the worst thing about this movie, and I told Carter this yesterday because he's not involved in this recording. So you look at the thing, and you look at the DVD, and it's called The Bone Snatcher. And you see a body in the sand with its flesh being eaten away, leaving just the bones behind. So like, okay, so it's a flesh-eating creature, but it's also a bone snatcher? But then you start the movie, and they're like, we found 3 bodies in the desert. Only their bones. And then you're like, wait, what? I thought it was the bone snatcher. Why wouldn't it snatch those bones? And then when they actually...
It made no sense.
When they actually get to the site where the bodies are, yeah, there's 2 skeletons, and it's like, okay, why didn't it snatch those bones? And then there's a missing skeleton, which I guess the characters presume... Actually, they think that the third guy killed the other 2, which is absolutely insane, and then walked into the desert.
Yeah, but
He
it's
was
also
snatched.
the only logical reason. If you unknowingly came across 2 bodies and were like, where's the third one? Oh, he's definitely the one. Like, that's just like the logical conclusion.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for that.
Well, here's another bad. They think that there's a psycho killer on the loose in the desert. They take almost no precautions. I think they
don't
usually
remember-
have...
I don't
they have
remember
one
them
guy
thinking
on
he was
watch.
a killer.
No, they totally thought he did.
I'm remembering it now as you tell it, but I didn't remember it when I wrote down my notes because I think I would have hated this movie a little bit less.
The leader
If
of the group, he might be Kurt. I think I'm going to call him Kurt. He was the army man-esque one.
Okay.
Kurt definitely thought that the third guy was the killer. And aside from Kurt keeping watch on some of the nights, they were just sleeping in tents around their Jeep. Like, one dude was just in a sleeping bag, 10 yards from the car.
They had guns, but that's pretty much it.
There is a killer on the loose, and
Supposedly.
you guys kind of just aren't doing anything except driving in his general direction.
Yeah, I think they're thinking that he's probably dead because he's been stranded in the desert for a while, but I don't know. I think you're absolutely right, and I do agree that it's bad. On top of that, though, with the whole, just sleeping and being in their car, not much happens in this movie.
Nothing
It's
happens.
so incredibly boring. Ian kind of mentioned that we almost fell asleep during it. It is, in fact, true. I, genuinely was like, I need to leave home or else I'm spending the night because I was, actively falling asleep.
Ashley was in, a giant, blanket.
I was. That's my weakness. Wrap me up and I'm good to go. But no, it just was so boring. I couldn't care to keep I was really trying actively also not to look at my phone, and it was not going well. But when I finished it, I was watching it on my phone, so I didn't have a choice. But yeah, this, like, the other thing too, I left before we finished it, and I was like, oh, I'll get home and I'll finish watching it. And when you, like, try to go and find your place, like, you really do realize how much nothing happens.
There's just so much nothing in walking in the desert. Let's move on to some more interesting bads.
Okay, so I thought the acting was pretty bad. I don't think they were good.
Yeah, it was bad. I kind of expected it to be bad, but it was indeed bad.
On top of bad acting, some of the shots were definitely done in a desert, and some of them definitely weren't, and were done with a green screen.
Which ones? I actually didn't notice that.
Quite a few of them where they're walking and, like, they're being shot from behind. It just looks so fake. Yeah.
Where they're, like, walking up, like, a sand dune or something.
Yeah, there was quite a few of them where I was like, this looks fake.
Damn.
And it just looked a little, like, bad green screen work. Like, I don't know. What else? What do you got for bad?
I've got some of the effects, like 3 specific effects, were absolutely awful, and they kept using them. So first off, we got the bug vision. And the bug vision, which we get right from our first kill when the geologists break open the dome, that I
didn't mind it then.
Maybe
it wasn't good, but I didn't mind it.
So they break open the dome, and after the guy, like, shoves his body, and we get the point of view of something from inside the dome, and it's like just a big red filter with the edges, like, kind of blurred and veiny going in towards the middle, kind of like when you get shot in a shooter game, but redder.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like.
And then we get that throughout the movie whenever it's the bug's point of view. Like, you know,
I don't know why the bugs had a point of view.
I know. It's like, I think it's just a bad trope of, like, the monster point of view watching the survivors. But, like, sometimes it didn't even make sense. I think there was one point where, like, we got the bug point of view, but from, like, 10 feet in the sky. And I don't know how that's possible. The bugs are not that tall.
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you get an aerial bug shot? They're ants.
I don't know. Also, they would show, like, the ants kind of swarming, and the CGI of it was...
Carter's gesturing for the DVD.
Carter has joined us at the table, so you might hear him now interject.
Just mute this mic.
Okay. It's not worth it. But, so anyways... They would show, like, the ants kind of, like, flying out from the creature's fingertips. But it just kind of looked like, you know how in Shrek, when like, the mud just kind of congeals at the very beginning?
No.
You know what I'm talking about, though?
Yeah, but that mud is so chunky.
That's what this looks like!
I don't think the bugs were that chunky.
You're right. The animation, the effect on Shrek was better than this effect.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
It was smoother. This just looked like it was. I know it was supposed to look like ants, but it didn't. It looked
like oil, and I thought that was kind of cool.
But
it was not ants.
It looked,
but it was neat.
Pellety oil, but all I could think of was, like, the Shrek thing where the mud is coming out.
You're thinking of the scene where it tries to drop ants on them, but they land on the gasoline, and it literally looks like someone, like, dropped balls of, like... They do, like, ball up and roll down.
Yes, I'm thinking of that. I'm also literally... It happens, like, multiple times where it, like, shoots from hands. It looked the same every time. One of them, the one where they drop on the gasoline, was significantly worse, but... They all looked like that. It was awful. Okay?
Yeah. It was pretty bad. I didn't hate the look, but it definitely wasn't ants. If it was trying to be ants,
it was
ants. Awful. It honestly looked like a monster made of, like, tar or oil.
Tar is a great... Okay, it looked kind of like tar.
That.
I would have liked it if it was just a tar monster, but not... It's an ant monster.
Snatcher.
It's still a monster, whether or not it's a snatcher.
All right. What are some more bads? Oh, that was only the first of the bad effects. The second.
Keep going.
Slow-mo. I hate slow-mo. I hate slow-mo in almost any movie it appears. And this movie really did it for no good reason. Like that first kill, in addition to having the buggo vision, it has slow-mo.
I think I blocked that out.
It's awful. We got slow-mo of Kurt, the guy who you may remember gets eaten in his sleeping bag, lowering his binoculars, which is really odd because there's nothing to see. It's just more of Kurt going like, whoa, as he looks through the binoculars. And then I think we get slow-mo of the bug monster at least 2 times once when it jumps out at Zach, which is the first time we see it in full, and that is its own bad. But
was it in slow-mo when it jumps out at Zach?
I'm pretty sure it was.
I didn't think it was, but I don't know.
Or I think there was slow-mo at some point there. Anyways, it just kind of sucked. I don't think anything looks good in slow-mo.
I think it looks good when it's a funny joke or like a slow-mo action shot kind of thing where it's like, but not in a movie.
I don't think horror looks good in slow-mo.
No, it doesn't.
Especially this kind of like, it was slow-mo, but like not filmed with the right kind of camera to be good slow-mo. So it just looks like slowed down to like frame by frame for a little bit. Yeah. And it makes it less scary in any movie. It wasn't very scary to begin with, but it's like just rough. Yeah.
There were some like really bad hard cuts.
Are you talking about like the flashback cut?
Yes.
Yes. That was my third.
Okay, good. There were some really just awful like flashback / hard cuts where it would like flash between a flashback, flash between bug mode, flash between real like what's actually happening, back to flashback, back to real what's happening. It just was like
a montage.
Yes, but of like weird cuts like that.
Yeah, there was. So the Snatcher is like some local monster, and local like desert inhabitant people. I'm not sure. They're never shown. So we know almost nothing about them. I think one of the crew members is at least familiar with them because he knows the monster by the name that the locals call it. And anyways, they have like totems. Is effigy the right word? They have little like bug carvings or sculptures on like sticks at one point in the desert. And the crew passes them and one tips over. And it cuts back to that shot so often of like the thing tipping over, or like a close-up of the like bug face on the top of the pole as if it's haunted, which like we're never led to believe it's haunted. They also, a guy like walks up to them, a guy in like rags, and gives like the driver like a bug carving on a necklace, and he just takes it and he's like, yeah, and they like hang it up in the minivan, and I guess you're supposed to think it's cursed, but it doesn't do anything. In fact, Zach keeps it at the end of the movie.
I don't think it's cursed.
It's not cursed.
I don't think they thought it was cursed.
But the way they did slow-mo as that guy walked away after giving the necklace, by the way.
Yeah, they did. You're right.
The way they use the slow-mo and the like flashy cuts and the flashbacks, they want you to think that there's something like ghostly going on.
Yeah, I don't know. There was also an awful flashback when they were in the when they found the cave and they were down there, and Zach started talking about Titan, who is the guy that got injured.
Titus,
that's what it is. And he was talking about what they call
Isekulu.
Thank you. He was talking about that and like how like he knew, and like it would cut to his face and be like, oh.
Titus got his arm ate, by the way, by ants.
And he just was in so much, but it would just cut to him. But also there was a red filter over it, so you just see as like Zach's still kind of in the background with this red filter. This movie was definitely edited by a film student trying to just use their knowledge from film school.
I got 3 tools here. I got bug vision, I got flashbacks, I got slow-mo. Let's make a movie.
Literally us starting this podcast. I said, I know how to use Reaper, let's do it. Anyways.
One more flashback. So Zach and Mickey have like a romance throughout the movie. It's fine. It's unremarkable.
I didn't even realize there was a romance until the very end where they...
Oh, they were totally hitting on each other.
They were kind of flirty, but it wasn't like...
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't like, he asked, they thought they were going to run away together.
I know, but the movie clearly was trying to set it up as a romance. Anyways,
Sure.
when Zach is sand surfing at night, Mickey comes out and they like talk about like body heat being important to survive the desert nights. And anyways, before that, like this is clearly a romantic scene, or intended to be. Before that, we get a flashback of from the previous days, every time Zach had talked to Mickey. And it's like, how dumb do you think we are? We just watched this no more than 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, that was stupid. But hold on. You just brought up a fact about how, it's cold in the desert at night.
That's true.
It is a fact, but at one point, they're all wearing like short sleeves and shorts. And they're like, oh, we gotta stop for the night. They're not shivering. They don't huddle up. They're just kind of sitting there comfortably. And I was like,
that's true. Yeah. They really should have had more coats or whatever.
But they made a point to point out the fact that it gets cold at night. Like, if you're gonna do that and then just completely ignore it, it wasn't interesting dialogue to begin with.
No, it wasn't.
The dialogue was unremarkable. I don't.
It was
much to say on
unremarkable.
that.
There's nothing.
I thought the plot was rather
bad.
dumb. Like, again, I liked the ant monster. I thought it was pretty cool, but like them, like they live, right? Because they leave, and this guy's like, "Hey, like, I'm gonna arrest you," and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, because they find the nest, they figure out what the creature is. Then the guy's like, "You're under arrest."
Oh, we forgot about that guy.
There's this weird guy from the base who...
He's just a jerk, and he wants to get them all arrested so he can take over as the new leader of the base or whatever.
Yeah.
He gets anted.
Yeah.
He gets snatched.
But they're like... In my mind, I'm like, that's our way out. Like, let's get out of the desert. I don't care about this ant monster. Let it find a new home. Like, it wasn't hurting people until we disturbed it.
That's very thoughtful of you. This is I don't know.
They make a point to say, it's just looking for a new home and that's it. It's like, then why are you going to go kill it? I understand that it killed people, but let it find its new home and leave it be.
Actually, I think it makes sense because Kurt, the like army man leader of the group, he was already like the revenge-seeking type because he wanted to personally hunt down that third geologist when they thought he was the killer. And now the Snatcher has snatched like 3 of their, like crewmates who he lives with. He clearly wants revenge. Zach is a scientist, and we've got the whole, but what if I study the monster trope going on at the end, kind of like from Aliens, which honestly, I always like that trope.
It's fair, and I don't hate it. But then why would he have gone to kill it if he wanted to study it?
Well, I guess Zach didn't kill it because the monster lives at the end, even though he stabbed it. I literally don't know how that's possible.
What else was bad? The plot was just like, they're like, oh, let's go find this guy. And then they're like, he's not here.
Then the Snatcher attacks.
Yeah,
All right.
It was a cool concept. Poor execution, for sure.
So, because we just talked about it, about the Bug Queen living, the last conversation, like the last scene where it's Zach and Mickey talking, it literally doesn't make sense.
It was a waste of time.
I wish I intended...
I didn't pay attention to it.
Oh, okay. The dialogue is actually nonsensical. I wanted to rewatch it before coming here so I could bash it better, but like, so Zach isn't from here. Mickey's job is here. Zach and Mickey are at the bus stop where Zach first was dropped off, and you're like, oh, it's time for Zach to go. And Mickey's like, so you think you like the field work? And he's like, yeah, I do. And she's like, oh, I guess that means I'll see you around more often. And he's like, yeah. And then they like, I don't know, hold hands or something. And then Mickey is the one who gets in the taxi to leave. And Zach is like, I'm staying. They need me here. And it's like, but that doesn't make sense. You're staying. Why set it up as if he's going when he's not? And then Mickey pulls away in the taxi after Zach helps her load up the car with like some boxes and like a suitcase. And then it zooms in on one of the boxes and the Bug Queen that we just watched Zach stab is in there, despite there being no signs of a second queen. Like, when they stab it, all the ants, like, go away. Like, they all, it made literally no sense.
I know. I don't know. Like, I think because the ant queen was, like, kind of glowing. If it was the deceased carcass of the ant queen, I would be like, okay, yeah. But it was still kind of had that glowish to it.
He stabbed it and it, like, deflated. This is the ant queen alive somehow, unexplained. So that plus the, like, literal garbage dialogue just left me very confused.
I think at one point in that conversation with Zach and Mickey, he says painting, and that's all I got.
I don't remember.
She was like, I'm gonna settle down. And he goes, painting, and
Charlie.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about, back to them killing the bug queen, which still doesn't make any sense. They were like, at one point, Zach is like, it's unique. So we have to go after it. And I was like, that is literally a reason to leave it alone.
It's the scientist trope. It's the greedy for knowledge scientist trope. It's a good one. It's a decent one.
It's a trope. No, it is a good trope. It just doesn't interest me. I guess I'm not a scientist.
I'm also not a scientist, but I haven't seen it enough for it to get stale yet.
And the last thing...
Ian's not a scientist. He's a arms dealer.
Yeah.
You're right.
Although I guess you could say business is a science.
On top of that, so when I was watching this movie, I was like, can they mine for diamonds in the desert? You can.
Of course.
I don't know why I didn't think you could, but I don't know. But my last bad thing is, so at the very end, right after they kill the Ant Queen, they're leaving the mine that they're in, and it's supposed to look like the mine is shaking. It does not.
Did they just shake the camera?
Correct. They just went.
The mine was awful.
It was awful, but you have to go back and rewatch this and really pay attention to the camera work. It is like some of the worst camera work I've ever seen, where it just like literally takes you out. You're just like, at that point I'm like, oh, I'm watching a homemade movie. Like, they are, oh my, it was awful.
Speaking of the mine, it was so underused. Like, after an hour and 15 minutes with like just being in the open desert, we finally get to a more traditional horror setting where they could be like maybe stalked or attacked a little bit by the Snatcher, and they are in and out of there within 10 minutes.
Nothing happens until the last 15 minutes.
They attempt to destroy the Snatcher. It like they like push it down a pit. It like lunges back up and grabs Kurt, and Kurt like pours a vial of nitroglycerin on it, and it goes.
Also, though, I just love that, like, we were supposed to get behind this tomfoolery of him, like, with the Snatcher running behind him, and him just going, boop, and it just falls down a hole, like...
Wait, speaking of Snatcher tomfoolery, there's a worse shot. I almost forgot about this. At one point, they radio for, like, rescue. Like, they get a good signal for a second out in the desert, and they're like, hey, we need help. Come pick us up. And so we see a shot of, like, a little plane getting ready to take off at their base. And as it is, like, on the runway, like, at the end of the runway, and our shot's at, like, the start of the runway, we, like, pan a little over, and we see a little box, and the Snatcher's, like, hiding behind it.
You're right,
and it's,
you're
like,
right.
peeking out from behind it at the crane, as if this bug would ever do that. And then later, like 15 minutes later, we see the plane going overhead. And then it just crashes into the desert. I guess the implication is that the Snatcher snatched the pilot, like, right at the end. But they could have shown that, because that could have been scary or interesting.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And all we got was that coy little, like, oh, I could snatch that guy.
But also, like... How would you have done that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yup. Wait, also, he is made of bugs. He doesn't have to peek around the side of the box. He doesn't have real eyes.
Exactly. Yet, he had bug vision.
Bug-o-vision. All
right.
I have one more.
Oh.
This is a big gripe. So because I'm not a scientist, I cannot make this point very well, but I believe that like the human body is not the best way to travel. It's good at a lot of things. Like, we're good at being us, but if you're looking for strictly like the best way to move mass, it's not a human. There's
a reason why primates are essentially the only upright animal, and even still they travel on all fours a lot.
Yeah. Like, think of, like, there's a reason we don't have, like, giant mechas. Like, Transformers don't exist. Like, I think they made a Gundam in Japan, and it's just for show, because, like, the human body isn't the best way to move. Like, you would use, like, a tank or, like, a quadrupedal thing if you wanted to design a natural-ish looking vehicle. So why the fuck are the bugs moving in a human shape? Why they can make a little carpet of ants and just move like that? Why wouldn't they make like a ball or a tank? Like, why a person? It doesn't make any sense.
Because
Snatcher.
They're the Bone Snatcher.
They snatched the bones. And speaking of that, the makeup of the Bone Snatcher, it's like a skeleton is standing up, and imagine it's just entirely covered in ants. Like, it's roughly the size of Bigfoot. So, like, Bigfoot, but all of his flesh and joints are replaced by ants, right?
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing
are
holding the
very
bones together.
loosely together, yeah.
So why are the bones necessary in the first place? They can't be providing
Because
that much
wanted
structure.
The name Bone Snatcher.
I know, but at one point they shoot it and it disintegrates. Actually, I meant to put this in my good, so I'll go back and talk about it after. They shoot it and it disintegrates.
That was a pretty good scene.
Yeah. And they're like, what happened? And they see like they broke like a bunch of ribs with that bullet, and they're like, we broke the bones. Like, it's still structurally sound. More ants should have just filled in that gap. It's not like if there was a hypothetical skeleton that had like an extra leg joint, the ants wouldn't know what to do. And when you break the bone, it might as well be that.
Honestly, do I think this movie would have been better if there was no bones facts? No, but it doesn't change the movie that much beyond like the plot points of them pointing out the bones.
Yeah,
like they could have done a horror movie with just a massive ants.
Yeah, I like the bones. The bones add so much. Like, when we get to the spooky, all in on the bones. But they made it a point to say that the ants need the bones for locomotion. I wish they had come up with a different reason.
I have to agree. They're just...
But let's throw this movie a bone. The shot where the Bone Snatcher is, like, shot with a gun.
Yeah.
That was good. We both went from, like, dozing to, like, I think we both literally, like, sat up.
That's true.
And wrote something down.
No, my glare was for your let's throw this movie a bone.
Yeah, I know.
We're not going to gloss over that.
I know.
It needs to be acknowledged that
It was
don't
necessary.
accept it. wasn't. All right.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to talk about that a little more.
Oh, we can talk about it more.
It's so cool because, like, you see... It's such a shitty shot until that happens. It's like, it's daytime. The Bone Snatcher is at, like, I don't know, 200 feet. Like, it is so not a threat to them. It's walking around like Bigfoot, and it literally, like, turns its little exposed skull to look at the camera.
Yeah, you can kind of see the bones sticking out of the ants, which I actually thought was cool.
Yeah.
They don't do that ever again. They wear the skin as a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Different.
But
it looks so cool, and then it shoots it, and they just...
It
was pretty good.
All
right.
It's like a collapsing skeleton and all the bugs scatter.
I forgot about that scene. I will give that was a good scene. I forgot about it. Okay, now spooky. Great. So at one point, the creature, the snatcher, the monster, whatever it is, it goes up to them in the middle of the night, and it's on all fours for some reason. And it's wearing this face. And now if you're like, I can't picture it. First of all, it's wearing the face of one of their friends.
The truck driver.
Yeah. Her name is Magda. It's wearing Magda's face. But when you look at it, when I looked at it, it looks like no face.
It was her face, like, carved off and stretched such that it was, like, very wide features. It was like a rectangular...
Yeah, it looked like No Name.
No Face, yeah.
Oh, it is No Face. Okay, yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen Spirited Away. But it looked like that, and I was like, That's kind of sick. That was cool.
It was
good.
pretty cool. And
it was definitely spooky wearing the mask.
And it like splits open her mouth and like makes her mouth opening like really big to like extend a tentacle of ants towards them. It was cool. We didn't mention this because it's barely important, but the ants have some like super acid that like the ants like Titus touches the ants and they like crawl up his arm and the whole thing is dissolved to the bone.
Yeah.
That's how they get at your bones to snatch them. So there is a threat. Like when we say like they extended a tendril of ants, like we're not just saying like ants bad. Like it's supposed to be threatening, but
oh, I forgot to include in the bad that there was zero tension.
Yeah, there was no tension at all. Nothing happened.
Anyways, what are your spookies?
So that was the biggest one. I don't know. We already talked about this. I liked the oily look of the creature. It indeed wasn't ants. I thought it was a little creepy.
My issue with the oily look was that I don't think it was really supposed to look like that, and it was bad CGI.
No.
If they were meant for an oily look, it would have looked better, and I would have been like, okay, yeah, it looks oily, so it's kind of cool. It just was bad CGI. Like,
yeah.
There's nothing else to say about it.
Another creepy was, this might actually be my last creepy. There's one, I forget what leads up to this, but at one point they attack the Snatcher when it's like up close and in a more humanoid shape. Maybe this was after it ate Kurt. And they like smack it or they like shoot it in the head. And this time, instead of collapsing, it like regenerates and like turns like it has like two skulls now sort of offset, and the ants slowly like re-swallow them as it turns to face the guy who shot it. I thought that was at least interesting.
Okay. I'll give you that.
That's it.
That's it?
It wasn't that spooky of a movie at the end of the day.
No. All right. Let's overall impression. All right. So I went into saying that I really hated this movie. After this conversation, I've cooled off. I don't hate it as much. I do want my time back though, but I've hated movies more.
That's good.
What was your impressions?
I really liked the idea of the monster, and I think the movie wasted it in all but like those two spooky scenes. It really didn't do anything, and there was no tension whatsoever.
Yeah. And
that's about it. I don't know if I want my time back, but it was...
Do you want your $6 back?
Oh, no. This is going in my DVD hoard.
All right. Okay, you said you had a quote, right?
Yes. This quote comes from the subtitles. It is, ethnic music, shrill chirp, creepy wind. Which is... Each of those appeared at least 4 times.
We need to get back to ethnic music.
There's nothing to say.
I think the people need to know what we're talking about. So you know how like music plays in movies, right? So it's got some music playing. Like it's not particularly anything of note.
It's some kind of like plucking string instrument.
Yeah. The subtitles called it ethnic music, and you're right. That was really funny, actually.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that. I'm so glad you reminded me.
And then shrill chirp played whenever we had bug vision.
Oh yeah.
And then creepy wind was just an absolute lie. It was not creepy. It just played that whenever it was windy, and it was like toward the end of the movie, and it was supposed to be creepy.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways. Oh, rating, right?
Yeah.
I gave it a 4. 4 ants.
Wow.
Yeah. No, maybe a 3. 3 ants.
I gave it a 3 ants.
Okay. Yeah. I said 4 and then I remembered I have terrible rating scales and don't know how to do this. So I think 3 is better. Originally I was going to say 2 and then I felt that was too harsh. I forget that 3 exists. Sometimes.
It's a good medium.
Yeah. So do you have a scale for your rating besides ants?
I was just going to do ants.
Okay.
Fun fact, second time I've used ants as a scale. Jason X also featured ants. That's right. I'm on an ant streak.
That's right. The ants were recreated the body,
right?
The
robot, like the nanobots were called ants.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Wow, really All right, that's our fun fact for the day.
Yeah.
The only fun fact in this episode. Yeah. So thank you all for listening. Ian, thank you again for joining. I appreciate your input.
Thank you for being subjected to this dreg of bull moose.
You know,
it was fun. I had a fun
think
time.
we would have a good conversation, but you really picked up on a lot of those funny moments, and I felt I had a lot of funny moments in this episode. Not to toot my own horn, but it's a rare occasion, my friends. As Carter says, I am funny enough, but I think I shined.
That's the spirit.
Anyways, thank you all for listening. If you managed to make it this far, we appreciate you a lot. Even if you didn't, we get it. If you liked what you heard, or if you didn't like what you heard, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcast, or you can leave us a comment on YouTube. And
stay spooky.
Horror Sex is brought to you by Wild Thing Media.